What is going on, everybody? Hello, and thank you for joining the Approach podcast. I am here with Victoria Bays. How are you doing, Victoria?
Really good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, we've been doing this for quite a while now. I think we need to change although I do love that profile picture on the podcast. I like the blackness of it, like the dark, but I think we need to
Yeah.
add your beautiful face to it. What do
You
you think?
think? Yeah,
Yes.
why not? Let's do
Uh,
that.
yeah. Well, I know who's gonna be in charge of that, so. So
I'll
no,
be on
I
it.
think I think we need to incorporate you in there. You're the humongous part of the approach program and everything. So, and the podcast. So yeah, let's make it happen.
Let's have a
Uh,
little rebrand.
a
Sounds
little
good.
rebrand, yeah, a little rebrand. So we just got talking. As you guys know, we do everything pretty much off the cuff for this podcast, and so literally 2 seconds before we press play, we just kind of say, "Hey, what are we chatting about today?" And so Victoria just brought up a good conversation of kind of dialing it back to why we have chosen 16/8 out of all the different ways to do intermittent fasting. And this is a topic that I get asked every day in my lives, right? So I know you've joined some of my lives, Victoria, and you see it, right? Can I do
Yeah.
this? Can I do that? And it's so funny because I get super frustrated on my life. I act like I'm really frustrated, but I'm not really. Because I'm promoting one thing and then people are saying like, oh, why don't you do this? You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if I told you to make a left at the stop sign to pick up $1,000 of cash, and you're telling me, well, what if I make a right at the stop sign? I'm like, I don't know what's over there. I know there's
Yeah.
$1,000 to the left. So
Yeah.
it
You just love
frustrates.
your analogies, like everything.
I got a
As soon as
ton.
I hear you say, like, I always think I'm like, here it comes. It's another cool analogy.
Yeah,
And yeah,
well, that's
I
how I learn.
totally agree. And I think it's funny, you see people, you'll do a TikTok that will go out and you'll very clearly say, like, these are the 3 meals you need to have in an 8 hour window. And people will start commenting, hey, I started to do this, but only eating once a day was making
Yeah,
me feel sick. And I'm like, you're not
yeah.
doing what was said in the video. You're talking about a completely different thing. But because they've heard the word fasting, they just relate it to whatever their kind of current experiences of fasting or whatever previous information that they've had. So,
Yeah,
and I think that was probably years ago, that was my concept. Like when I first heard that people were fasting, I was like, why are you starving yourselves? Like, if you don't
yeah.
have information and you're not knowledgeable about the subject and you haven't kind of really heard from anybody that's doing it properly and you just hear people are fasting, I think you do immediately just think of starving yourself. Like
Yeah. I
that's
agree with you, and I understand where that comes from.
yeah,
One thing I heard a while back was like, so intermittent fasting is voluntary; it's something you're choosing to do.
yeah,
Starving is not. So that's
yeah,
one huge distinction you can easily make, right? Like
yeah,
you choose, and you've heard me say this a million times. It's just scheduled eating. That's all it is. If we like break it down, it's eating at certain
yeah.
times of the day. Um, I've asked this question. I know we're going to go off on so many different rants right now because it's
I
such a
know.
hot topic. But every time I ask people, are we supposed to eat throughout the entire day? Like nobody
Mm,
says yes, not one
mm,
person. So
yeah,
okay, if you already know that, let's just break it down to only eating in a certain period of the day. That's it. So
yeah, yeah. And I think my other kind of when I think like really far back into what I would think if I heard that someone was fasting, I would have probably thought it was for religious reasons. And I
that
think if I
too.
think back, that's my very first experience of hearing about people fasting. I would have been like, oh, is that for your culture? Is that for your religion? And then it's sort of when you hear about it in a diet sense, you start to think, like, I don't know the details of this. And then there's so many variants
You mean
within
like
that.
you do this other than one time a year kind of thing?
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah, yeah. And
yeah.
like, you know, there's so much information out there and so much misinformation. So I think it's a good idea to kind of just cover what the different types of fasting are that people are sort of currently doing, and
Yeah.
then a little bit on the pros and cons of them, and then why 16/8 is where we are with the approach.
Let's do it. And yeah, and I have such a love-hate relationship with it now, just because so many people are now kind of jumping on this bandwagon. Huge companies. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw one of the major kind of quote unquote weight loss companies that are now promoting intermittent fasting. I think I sent you a photo of
Yeah.
it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
holy shit. Like, I can't believe, like, you
Yeah.
know, and for me, like, I never did anything different. Like, our program has always been intermittent fasting from day one. It's always been 16-8 from day one. Yeah, I took 2 years to study this before I came out with my program, so I know
Hmm.
it worked. And so, like, and I see all these other companies kind of now coming on board after changing their deal 100 times, and so it's
Yeah.
just totally a love-hate relationship. I'm like, thank God you're coming on board now, but like, where were you 10 years ago, kind of thing. So
Yeah. Do you remember what your kind of first, like those, when you first kind of found out about fasting and how that
yeah.
experience was?
Yeah, so this is funny, and I know we were kind of briefly talking about this. So I was a wrestler in high school, and that's my first experience with intermittent fasting, is where we had to cut weight, right? And
Yeah.
so we did intermittent fasting to cut weight, and that's honestly, this is my first experience with it. I was 15, 16 years old, however old I was, and people always talk about, oh, how do you work out? How do you do this? We did everything on a fast. Like, we had more energy. We performed better. We did everything, fasted. And listen, some of them may not have been the safest fast. Like, we were
Yeah.
like putting on garbage bags and doing
Oh my
push-ups in a
God.
sauna, on a fast. I say not recommended at all. But
Yeah.
we did almost everything in a fasted state to cut weight.
Yeah.
And so that was my first experience. So then when I later on, like years later, when I went to school for it, I'm like, oh wow, this is like a thing. This is like a real thing.
Hmm.
And then I really got into studying and study all the different ways, the OMAD, the 5-2, I guess we'll chat about all the different ways and the
Yeah.
benefits and side effects to all of it. But yeah, that was my first experience, was wrestling in high school.
I think that should be the main image on our podcast. You wrestling in high school.
Me in like a unitard with my headgear on. I don't know if people want to see that. Yeah, I think I burned all those pictures. Um,
It's yeah, I think that's really interesting because I think what we just need to kind of show to people and explain to people is that you went through a journey to get to this point of understanding 16-8 in the way that you do. And I
mhm.
think, like you say, some of these huge companies that are suddenly turning around and saying, actually, we've changed our mind. This is the way that you do it now. That's so
Yeah.
inauthentic. And I think the one thing the approach has always stood for is authenticity. And that's been because, like you said, you took the journey of discovery about this program and creating this program before you launched it to people. So you were able to come at it with complete confidence
Yeah.
in everything that you've created.
I really like that word. It really is kind of inauthentic, and people, and obviously huge companies have sales quotas to meet and all this stuff, and they're gonna do whatever it takes. They don't, they're gonna
Yeah.
leave your sister at the bus stop if it means they're gonna make more money, whatever it is. And no, we've always done this from day one. And again, I studied for 2 years before I even created my program. And obviously I was a chef first and knew food and did all that, but really started studying fasting and doing it myself and doing marathons on intermittent fasting and doing all
Yeah.
this stuff. I was like, wait a second, like, there's something to this, feeling better, looking better. Even as a man, I would get compliments on my skin all the time. And,
Yeah.
I don't think that happens very often, but like, yeah, like when you do intermittent
Yeah.
fasting, like, skin glows, you feel better, you have a pep in your step, kind of thing. Um, so yeah, with that, I mean, we can talk about the different types
Yeah.
of ways to do intermittent fasting. I mean, I think a lot of people know OMAD, or
Yeah.
one meal a day. Um, the I'm not a fan of that for a couple reasons. People tend to either overeat on OMAD. They think because they're only eating one meal, they are going to just gorge and stuff their face on that
Hmm.
one meal. They could be consuming 3, 4, 5,000 calories in that one meal and think, oh,
Yeah.
it's okay. I'm doing OMAD, or not really care about what that meal is. I'm doing OMAD. So
Yeah.
there's those kind of, side effects, or just bad mentality when it comes to OMAD, or the opposite, people undereat, right?
Right.
So I just don't like the inconsistency of the OMAD.
I think also to me, OMAD feels very easy to fall off the wagon as soon as you're socializing
Yeah.
because you're then kind of making the decision that you're eating that one meal at that one time of the day. And if you then get invited out to lunch or dinner or whichever is the opposing time to your usual eating window, you're then finding that you're, out with people eating, and it's going to be very, very easy to fall off the wagon and not be able to handle that consistency.
Yeah, too restrictive, too, and I think somewhat of that is that it becomes kind of culty, like, oh no, I'm OMAD, like I can't, like,
Yeah.
give me a break, buddy,
Yeah.
So yeah, there is an inconsistency to it for sure. Um, with that, I think 5-2 is like a next, and that is
Hmm.
I think that is one of the worst, if there is such a thing as a worst intermittent fasting style. I
Yeah.
think that is one of the worst, just because of the major inconsistency with it. 5-2 just means 5 day on, 2 days off.
Yeah.
And so people can easily, without any accountability to anybody, just switch their days,
Yeah.
switch their times. And then before you know it, they're like, oh, I'll fast tomorrow. Oh, I'll fast tomorrow. I'll do it, and then it becomes just forget it.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's probably the least consistent way to do intermittent fasting. And
Yeah.
and then you have these people that are like, call it weekend warriors, right? That they fast throughout the week and then go nuts on the weekend because they felt
Yeah.
like, I don't know, they were missing out or something. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah. And that's going to, obviously, aside from the weight loss aspect, that's going to be awful for your skin. If you're, not consuming any kind of sugar and things like that throughout the week, and then at the weekend you suddenly have a full binge on something, your
Oh my
skin, your
God.
sleep, like your energy
Destroyed.
levels, like all of that is going to be absolutely all over the place.
Yeah, think about your body as like a sponge, right? Like maybe I don't want to say the word depriving because you really haven't, but in short term, yes, you're kind of depriving, and then you've then consumed all this
Yeah.
terrible stuff. Yeah, your body's like, give me that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
not a good situation there for sure. I do like the extended fast. I do like the 48-hour fast, the 72-hour fast. I think they're good for quote unquote like fun challenges.
Yeah.
Um, and that's really what I would keep them as, is like kind of like fun challenges, because they do have some benefits, right? Your
Hmm.
body, sets into that autophagy more so. You fight those bad cells in your body, repair those cells in your body. And so all that does happen. There are tremendous benefits. But again, I think as a fun challenge once a year or something like that,
Yeah.
I do like it. I don't, they've done more and more studies, and I follow a guy, Dr. Peter Attia, who's big into this, you know, and he's done all the fasting. And he's like, look, the major way to do thing is consistency. Like our bodies like consistency. Our bodies like getting up at the same time, going to bed at the same time. Like, so when you start throwing your bodies for a loop on these crazy fasts, like I don't think you're gaining as many of the benefits as just doing a consistent fast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I agree. And so the only one really left is 16/8, I guess.
yeah, well, yeah, I guess so. So 16-8. Yeah, there's 24. There's a
Sure.
few other ones, but
Okay.
16-8 is there's 18-6.
Yeah.
So the problem
Yeah.
with 18-6, and it seems so similar to 16-8, minus a couple hours, is we like the 3 meals in the 16-8 period. 2 meals, I call them like kind of like these bookend meals. I'm not a huge fan. I think in that process, it may stunt your metabolism a little bit. I
Hmm.
like that third meal to kind of just keep things rolling, even though it's
Yeah.
a smaller snack. In that 18-hour window, as we get longer fast, women may have disruptions in hormones into the longer fast. And so you never run
Yeah.
into that issue with a 16-hour fast. It's just that sweet spot of knowing that you can do it consistency. You're really only missing one meal. You're not depriving
Yeah.
your body. You're not restricting your body. It's just such a simple method to do. And listen, like we've seen over 250,000 pounds lost. Like
Yeah.
that's my thing. When people are like on my live, like, well, what if I do this? I'm like, look, we've helped people lose 250,000 pounds. If you want to go against that number,
Yeah.
like by all means, like that is totally up to you. But that's a huge number. Like, why would we do anything different?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Totally.
so, um,
Awesome.
I know Adam's been doing some fasting, right?
Yeah. So he actually last year he did a 72-hour fast
Nice. Nice.
and he loved it. And he
Mm-hmm.
loved it. And he's really keen to do one again in January at some point. At the moment,
Yeah.
he's doing dry January and he's cut out all sugars and stuff.
And his
So
beer?
yeah, no beer.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
he must be a peach to be around.
He normally does it in January.
Yeah.
And he always feels better for it and he sleeps better for it. And
Yeah.
he'll wake up and be like, yes, this is the life. And then
Uh-huh.
we just need to see what happens in February. But
Yeah.
yeah, he did like a 72-hour water fast because he said he just felt like he really needed to just completely reset his body.
Hmm.
And he felt really good on it. And by like day 2, he was like, I can't believe how good I feel. Like I thought
Yeah.
I'd feel way worse. Um, but yeah, I'm a huge, huge fan of intermittent fasting. It
Yeah.
wasn't hard for me because I'm a black coffee drinker
Hmm.
and eating first thing in the morning has always made me feel a bit nauseous. Like I like to
Yeah.
just get on with my day and have a coffee. So it was pretty easy for me. And I've always preferred to have a bigger meal at lunchtime than in the
Yeah.
evening. So it wasn't a lot of changes for me
Sure.
to make. Um, Adam is someone who loves his morning food. So for him, it's like, and he can get on board with black coffee, but he'd rather kind of just have nothing, I think,
Yeah.
than, yeah, and just wait until he's eaten in his window and then have a coffee with milk in. But
Sure. That's
yeah,
me. I'd rather have, I
yeah,
don't do the black coffee. I can, but it's like I'm not a huge coffee guy to begin with, so I'll just
yeah.
do it with
I
my
never
milk or
used
whatever.
to. And then I worked, I'm sure I've told you this before, I worked as a demonstrator for Nespresso for about 2.5, 3 years
No, I
while
did
I was at,
not hear this story. Are you kidding
yeah,
me?
well, I was the number one salesperson in the UK
For
um,
Nespresso.
for Nespresso. So they gave me like so many machines. There was a point where I was just like, I have too many machines. I was having to like give them away to everybody.
Wow.
I had like a lifetime supply of pods delivered and stuff. Like it was crazy. And it was while I was acting. So I would do that like 2 days a week, and then I'd
Hmm.
be able to kind of support myself living down in London.
Yeah.
And so doing that, I got really into coffee and like where coffee comes from and what good coffee is. And I got to a point where I was like, milk spoils the coffee. And I'd gone from like being like a latte person, like I want this to taste as little like coffee as possible, to being like, no, give me the black
The real
espresso,
good stuff.
the
Yeah.
real good stuff. So yeah, I'm a big black coffee drinker anyway.
That's
And
funny.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
there
you
you
know,
go.
Rachel doesn't get out of bed without coffee.
Yeah.
She's, she's a coffee connoisseur, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So last year we got the machine that has like the, not to get off track, but we got the where it grinds the things for you and then
Yes.
yeah. So we're
Yeah.
big into that. Yeah.
Yeah. My sister just got one of those machines because she worked as a barista for a while
Mhm.
she was training. And then yeah, she really missed just being able to like make her coffee fresh every morning. So she like went out and bought with her kind of first proper like
Check. Yeah.
check. She was like, yeah, I'm gonna go and buy a proper coffee machine.
That's funny.
So
That's
yeah,
funny.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, cool. That's kind of the lowdown on intermittent fasting and why we do the 16-8 is just that sweet spot of,
yeah.
you're going to gain all the benefits. You're going to see the results. It's not going to take long to have that happen for you without the restriction, without the concern, right? So it's just, it works.
Do you want to finish with a few quick fire questions from some of
Let's
our
do it. I was waiting for these questions.
yeah.
Blind
Um,
questions.
So these are all questions that have come through on TikTok, and they're not from members, they're just from people who are following on TikTok.
Who should
Do I
become
need to have,
members?
yeah, who should? Do I need to have fat in my diet, and which are the best fats to have?
Oh yeah, this is a question that comes up all the time. Yes, fat is essential. So we
Mm,
need good fat. My only thing I say about this is you're probably getting good fats without even realizing it, right? So, by this point, everybody cooks with olive oil. I'm assuming they're not cooking
hmm
with canola oil, right? We're way past that. Um, I assume people are having nuts on occasion, or eating some proper fish or local fish. And so all those are good, healthy fats, right? So yes, healthy fat is essential. You're probably getting it anyways without even thinking about it. So we have it in, we talk about it in our program, but we talk
Hmm.
about just like that. Like you're getting it anyways. Like if you didn't know what they were, here's a list, try and incorporate them if you can.
Perfect. This was a comment that I saw that I thought may amuse you more than anything. I heard that the only fruit that is good for weight loss is cucumber.
That
So,
is that is amusing.
so
Um,
this was commented on your you went to the supermarket and you were like asking people which fruits they thought would be the best out of the selection there. And
um,
the comment section was really interesting because people were like, no, you can't have that one like if you're
right.
dieting, if you're trying to lose weight, you can't have that. And somebody said, I heard you can't have any of them, you can only have cucumber.
That's
And
that's funny.
just knowing how unrestrictive the program is in terms of that, like, and you've had it a lot with bananas where people have come on board and said, like, can I eat a banana? And it's
Yeah.
like, of course you can eat a banana.
So, someone on my live there, they gave me a good thing to say. It's called diet brain. I'm like, we got
Yeah,
to get people out of the diet brain, and it's so true. Yeah, that is funny. Like all these things, yeah. So first of all, there's no such thing as like a food that's gonna help you lose weight. I mean, there's healthy foods for you that are gonna help you feel better, and the
yeah,
weight will come off by eating better, proper foods. Uh, Cucumber is the only thing. No, cucumber is like 90% water, right? It's one of those things with
yeah,
like very little nutritional value. I think they're great for hydration. Listen, my kids love them. We get
yeah,
cucumbers. There's not a day that we don't have a cucumber in our house. Like they're in their lunches every day. And I think they're good, but they're like no real nutritional value. It's more just the
yeah.
hydration part of things. If you want to throw some in your water for a little cucumber flavor, that's cool. Just don't eat them during your fasting period. Yeah.
And so this was an interesting one. Someone said, what do you mean by pre-workout? So you were talking about pre-workout shakes, but there was
Mhm.
some confusion in the comments because some people thought that like a pre-workout was like a walk to your workout or
Oh,
working out before you work out. So yeah,
that's fine. That might be like my generation or our generation crowd. Well, like because pre-workout I think is like a newer thing within the last decade. I would say there's pre-workout supplements which generally contain creatine, maybe some protein, and some other BCAAs or whatever. They're gonna give you a little pep, a little jitteriness for your workout. They will all break your fast. All of them have artificial sweeteners in them or sugar in them or whatnot. So they're all going to break your fast. A pre-workout is not a stretch before your workout. It is actually a supplement that you're taking to kind of quote unquote enhance your workout. Studies have shown that a cup of black coffee does the same exact thing for your workout as some of these supplements. So I always tell people save your money, save the jitteriness of some of these, crazy supplements that don't have any, FDA approval or whatever, and just sip on a cup of black coffee before you go to the gym. It's that simple.
absolutely. Final one is somebody said, I'm feeling like I'm not even hungry the next day, and I feel like I'm losing my appetite. So, not a member, so we don't know what meals they're having or any details, but they've sort of expanded to say that they thought they were going to feel really hungry all the time. And actually, they're finding the opposite, that they're not feeling like they want to eat as much as they thought they would.
Yeah, so
And yeah,
that happens almost instantly within the first week. I would say people's, have less of an appetite. They're getting a lot more, there's a couple things that are like combining here. So I think a lot of times people are switching some of those empty calories or empty carbs and things like that for more nutritious
mm-hmm.
foods. And so I think that's satiating them a lot more than the garbage that they were eating. That's number
Yeah,
one. And number two, your stomach is shrinking. Remember, your stomach expands to whatever you do to it, right? It's just one of those things. And so when you start eating less or eating what you need and not more, your body will get a sense for that, and you're starting needing less. And so those are all
Yeah.
good signs that I think things are working for the most part. And again, I'm making these statements without knowing exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
But we hear and see this all the time, that people think that they're going to be starving and doing fasting, and the exact opposite happens. And
Yeah.
again, those effects really don't take long to start seeing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's all our member questions or
Awesome.
TikTok following.
Very cool. So, I mean, listen, everything we're going crazy here. I know it's the month of January. We've had, I don't even know how many members join, and it's exciting. I get excited, like we talk about, for every member that joins, for every pound lost. Even in January, I think it's exciting. You know, we help people all year round, but obviously we see kind of that influx of people, and it's great. You know, we tell people all the time, don't go to the gym. Don't work out if you're looking to lose weight. There's no such thing as an exercise that'll help you lose weight. Exercise doesn't burn fat. Intermittent fasting helps you burn fat. So if you guys are serious about the program or serious about making those changes, go to the App Store, the Play Store, go to
Yeah.
the Approach podcast, or sorry, the Approach uh, in the App Store. You can also go to jointheapproach.com in your web browser, right?
Yeah,
Jointheapproach.com.
absolutely.
I'm like mixing up all these different means of finding us. But yeah, if you have any questions, you can always email us too, right? Email help
Yeah,
at jointheapproach.com. But
that's
yeah,
it.
thanks, Victoria. This was an awesome way to get people information about how to do the right intermittent fasting.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you guys.
Bye.